I saw the other day a documentary about cryogenics. Well, I caught it as I was heading out the door for work. It was being hosted by Mr. Spock. The new Mr. Spock. The actor who plays Spock in the new Star Trek movies. I can't remember his name. I could look it up, but name looking up apathy strikes. For those not familiar with cryogenics, I'm sure most people have come across this at some point. But it offers the elderly and terminally ill the opportunity to freeze their body vehicle in the hopes that they may return back to life in the future. Some people consider the merits of freezing themselves if they are riddled with cancers, and give specific instructions to only be awoken when the cures are found. The bodies are frozen with liquid nitrogen. Advocates believe scientists will one day work out how to warm the bodies and bring them back to life, by which time doctors may be able to cure cancer and other untreatable diseases today. Currently, cryogenic freezing can only happen once someone has been declared legally dead. Here are the details of the process. Freezing begins soon after death to prevent brain damage. The body is firstly cooled in an ice bath to gradually reduce its temperature. In some cases, CPR will also be administered to prevent brain cells from dying. Doctors will drain the body of all blood and replace it with antifreeze fluid, designed to stop harmful ice crystals forming. The body is then packed in ice and transferred to a facility in the US or Russia. On arrival, it is put into an Arctic sleeping bag and cooled by nitrogen gas to -11°C over several hours. During the next 2 weeks, the body is slowly frozen until it is at a temperature of -196°C. It is then suspended in liquid nitrogen and transferred into a patient care bay, where it will remain indefinitely until science advances. Cryogenics facilities also offer the option of cryopreservation, where the head is removed and frozen without the body. Scientists theorize that in the future a new body could be cloned or regenerated for the head to be attached to. And for the privilege of such a process, it will set you back a minimum of $28,000. Well, firstly, I do hope that if I ever were so foolish as to go through such a procedure, that they could actually recreate a body for me if I only had my head frozen. Imagine spending your whole reanimated life as a head in a jar. Interestingly, how the mainstream information suggests the cloning is a science of the future, and this is far from the truth. Cloning has existed since before humans walked the earth. A fairly obvious statement. Of course there must be other civilizations far in advance of our own that developed such capabilities eons ago. But I was more speaking of the existence of cloning on this planet before humans walked upright as they do, when we were still monkeys before our genetic upgrade. For yes, lest we forget, we are the creations of the reptilians, the reptilian Orions, and their genius geneticist Enki. Millions of years ago they came and altered the DNA of the smartest monkeys they could find to effectively have a slave force, to mine for gold, for their depleted atmosphere, due to their war with the Syrians, and food supplies they sought for the same reason, due to shortages as a result of the war with the Syrians. So the technology was in use millions of years ago. There can be little doubt they had cloning capability. If the reptilians were dabbling with DNA with such meticulous ease, and leaving their gophers and shape-shifting middlemen to manage the human farming, the technology would be here still, though hidden from our knowledge. Only recently have they announced their amazing cloning discoveries with animals and Dolly the sheep, or was it a cow? I forget. Apparently, human cloning is prohibited, although rumours abound of the elites, the presidents and royal reptilian bloodlines cloning themselves, with a fair degree of evidence proving how certain of these characters were in several places simultaneously, or reached locations far swifter than is possible, giving today's technology. But then maybe they have transmat beams, or beam-me-up Scotty teleportation devices. Who knows what they have under wraps? Also, alarming evidence has emerged about the cloning of creatures in labs for the purposes of being test subjects for all those chemical and toxic-laden pharmaceuticals and beauty-enhancing make-ups that seem to be essential for daily life. Why humans put all that stuff on their faces I never understood. The stuff is highly toxic and can cause cancers and infertility, along with a zillion other sources of toxins that compound to ensure cancers are as prolific as we've ever seen them to be, along with infertility, autism, etc., etc. But being a lab-grown creature, this in fact denies the suffering individual any rights, for it was not born of nature, and so any rights it had as a natural-born individual is out of the window. Apparently this is a law that then permits this particular brand of suffering. Methinks the laws need updating, as obviously they were created at a time where giving birth to individuals technologically was the stuff of science fiction. Again, unlikely as suggested, this technology came from the reptilians, who arrived to create their human slave race millions of years ago, and since they never left, neither did their gadgets and gizmos. labs have more or less admitted to the presence of these lab-grown test subjects, safe in the knowledge that the law of animal and human rights does not affect them, as they have bypassed it. It's a pity laws are needed at all, really. Surely decency should be enough to allow an individual to navigate through life and not impose upon anyone or anything else. But of course, all laws are just restrictions anyway. Sure, they might be needed to keep some mass murderers and their like in check, but were everyone operating from a place of awareness and engaging with others being to being, such ill intentions wouldn't even cross their minds, particularly with the knowledge of cause and effect karma to deal with. That is why the real universes have no laws or restrictions. They are not needed. Everything is, and anything someone may wish to add to that will have them out of alignment with this true reality. All laws are simply ideas created in creation, and they become solidified with agreement, become restrictions and taplining tools. And generally, most laws only apply to the slaves anyway, and not those controllers who initiate them or deem them a necessity. Although they are admitting to their lab-grown specimens. But only speculation abounds for the myriad of creatures they have made, for much gene splicing between species is rumoured, chimeras created with the aim to find certain genetic combinations that are a benefit, particularly for military, as always, applications. I hear stories of half-wolf, half-human hybrids, or half-pig and human creatures, and on and on. One day I might, out of curiosity, try to access these labs on the real side, or try glean information about them and their hybrid inhabitants. Maybe have a chat with them, perhaps. Maybe I already have. I have met all manner of strange and curious creatures on my real side escapades. Also, the cloning has been confirmed on the real side too. Dwayne and others have made mention that the controllers have cloning capability, and are using it for, of course, what else? Nefarious purposes. They have, by all accounts, cloned much of the population. I myself had a few dreams where I was informed that I too had been cloned, and that sometimes I shared dreams with my clone, as the cloning process had us intrinsically linked. But the clone really is simply another vehicle, that is all. It won't have any effect or much by way of involvement or influence on whomever it was cloned from. All they have effectively done is create another physical vehicle that happens to be identical to you, and whatever individual is inhabiting it isn't you. It just happens to have the same vehicle, and that is all. It's just as viable a vehicle for experiencing creation as any other. It won't even have your personality. As what you have as a personality, your attitudes and drives, are what you have created for your consciousness over millions of lifetimes. So how could another completely unique individual with its own millions of years of created attitudes be anyway like you? It's possible they could download your mind and memories onto the clone, but again, all it could have would be all you've experienced only in this lifetime. For the mental body is just a storehouse of what has been experienced, with the body created in this life, the seat of the subconscious, the causal body, with all its past life experiences and references, would be beyond anyone's ability to download and add to a clone. But then, anything is possible. Cloning technology and mind mapping would only happen on the physical level, as the scientists could only interface with the physical vehicle and mind. Maybe on higher, literally speaking, levels, on the causal level say, where our causal vehicles with all the past life information resides, perhaps cloning of the causal body could take place. To say that cloning potentially could occur and incorporate the entire created self and all 5 bodies it encompasses is a possibility. But rest assured, the real self would be beyond such, as in the real universes, we no longer would have physical bodies. We are just beings of light. However, some individuals who stand real with the ears, but still operate in the psych realms, will have vehicles that correspond with each life level and the physical, that can be utilized for sharing and supporting the awareness expansions of those still in creation. This would apply to the real universal guides, Rebazar and all the others, and Rebazar has his physical vehicle too, and on the earth he resides in a secret location, a cabin or such, that apparently a few individuals have stumbled upon and found Rebazar residing there. So if the guides have physical vehicles and somehow someone got a hold of some of the vehicle's DNA, technically then Rebazar can be cloned. But again, only his vehicle, not the unique and inimicable being that Rebazar is. Dwayne has mentioned this is also the case. The guides have been cloned too, and their clones encountered on the real side. It would be fairly obvious as to why the controllers would wish to do this. They seek to divert, misdirect, intimidate, and waylay everyone who seeks to connect with their real awareness and perceive and stand real with the is. So a handy Rebazar clone would be just the ticket to attempt to say, put off an individual with a few choice words of disillusionment or discouragement or whatever was required. What I would say on this is that when you encounter real guides on the real side, They have a certain presence about them. They radiate a pure sincerity and beingness that can't be faked, duplicated, or mimicked. A few times I have encountered guides who did not have this quality about them, and through my real awareness, I was then able to see through the deception. Generally, the fake guides will act uncharacteristically of a real being of light, but if in doubt, the intuition, or better yet, awareness, will detect if they have this shining real light of the is about them or not. But anyway, about this whole cryogenic thing. For a start, if people are freezing themselves to one day receive treatments for cancer, here's a heads up. They already have cures for cancers. They always have done, yet they are suppressed due to the billion-dollar industry that is the pharmaceutical company and the money to be made from chemotherapy. Doctors and the medical industry are not about health, but more about wealth. It is their business to cause maximum sickness due to the raking in of the money through the treatments that invariably are just as harmful, if not more so, as what they claim to cure. And of course, all the medications destroy the body, and agreement to them will have us restricted and suffer again cause and effect consequences, taplining and ensuring more lifetimes awaiting us. And besides, not only is big money to be made through the treatments, but all independent scientists who do stumble upon cures will be vilified, have their reputations destroyed, they will be denounced and stripped of their medical credentials, and most likely be either eliminated or at the very least imprisoned. The cures for cancers seem to run along the lines of frequencies, finding the frequency that corresponds with the particular cancer, and it can be eradicated, because everything is effectively a frequency. Our physical vehicles are electromagnetic, and any illness or cancer is due to disharmonious frequencies bombarding us, causing distortion, which translates through the electromagnetic to the holographic as manifesting disease. Naturally, this is known to the controllers, and indeed many in the know won't touch chemotherapy. The radiation destroys cells, healthy and cancerous, indiscriminately. There was an individual recently who discovered a very successful cure for many illnesses, ranging from cancer to autism. He had an 80% success rate with both. Even people detached completely with severe autism were being restored and able to function as their vehicle should do. The substance he used was apparently something naturally occurring in the body that keeps cancers at bay. But if overwhelmed, as our bodies generally are in this polluted and purposefully poisoned world, this substance becomes depleted, and cancers etc. can set in. What he had achieved was replicating this body substance in a lab, and then could be ingested like a pill, with evident and clear success results, as were demonstrated on his website. The substance was called GC-MAF, and the individual credited with the discovery is David Noakes. But of course, the big pharma companies declared war on him, and he was subject to inquiry, shut down, and imprisoned. It is another law that you cannot promote cancer-treating claims unless approved by the pharmaceutical cartel, and naturally they are not about to do this if it impacts their profit margins. As things stand, David Noakes faces the rest of his life behind bars. So when it comes to curing cancers in the future, as I say, they have cures for everything now, and suppress anyone who stumbles upon them. So I imagine things are not likely to change in that regard. More likely things will become steadily worse as the control agenda rolls on, and more stringent lockdowns of the human slave race brought into effect. Coupled with this also is the fact that the controllers wish to cull the population. We are unmanageable as we stand, and too many people are waking up to what's occurring, and even worse, from the controllers' perspective, people are becoming more aware. The new presentation is here, and they don't like it. They've elected to pull the plug then, to cull most of the population, and for those surviving this cull, an Orwellian, robotised, locked-down, constricted world that surely would not be worth surviving the cull for anyway. And don't think by leaving the physical level and passing on that you might escape the matrix of control, as that which all this stems from has all the levels up until the mental level on lockdown. The Callum god of the mental has you in his clutches, and when passing over, assuming you don't go beyond his reach, you're as much under his control as you were on the physical. So culling the population is of no concern to him or the controllers in regards to ceasing individuals from awakening too far. So culling the population is of no concern in regards to ceasing individuals from awakening too far, for it is far more difficult to wake up on the levels beyond the physical. If one lacks any connection to the real awareness, so someone with, say, little or no awareness who can at least see the agenda on the physical will probably have no interest on the astral when passing over, particularly if they didn't take the time to consider or perceive the life levels beyond the physical. It will all seem like a floaty, surreal dream, or they may feel they have made it to their designated heaven and the struggle is over, or whatever ideas they are attached to, beliefs they have incorporated into their created consciousness. For the Callum god and the other reptilian governors of the psych realm levels will be more than happy to accommodate an individual's limited perspectives if it means gleaning their agreement to remain on these limited creational levels, to go no further, and at some stage be regurgitated back onto the physical once again. And if returning to the Earth, probably in even worse control conditions, and more likely as not robotized. The only way to escape this most fiendish of reptilian overlords, the Callum, is through awareness, with the real intent recognised, that of recognising the is through the connection with our real awareness and our true selves, which are with the is always, we can supersede the limited levels of the psych realms, and through the process of removing tap lines with the New You song, and relinquishing agreements and attachments, we can simply walk through creation and be a real being of real light, which we already are. We just must recognise it. So individuals connected to their real selves would fear not a cull. Yes, their physical vehicles could be destroyed. Then they'd simply move through creation and position themselves in the real universes, should they have taken the time to recognise this true reality and stand real in it with the real universal guides.